Welcome to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams, the Center for Accounting Transformation, and CPA Trendlines. On this podcast, we share ideas and hear from guests about how they find, retain, develop, and advance women and other underrepresented groups in their accounting firms. Now, on to our guest. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Move Like This, sponsored by the Accounting Move Project. I am excited to be here with an old friend, somebody I have known for quite a while. We won't say the exact number because that may age us. But I am very happy to be here with Alice Gray Harrison. She has her own company called AGH Consulting, and I would love to hear all about it, Alice Gray. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. We are a small boutique firm that focuses on the accounting industry, and we help organizations going through change, firms that are, as you can imagine, experiencing M&A, private equity coming in, changes in leadership, even down to implementing a new CRM system or Workday. And we focus on the people side of the change. So it's about how do we bring people along the continuum of change so that we can reach performance as quickly as possible. So that's what my firm does. I have almost 30 years of experience in strategic communications and change, and really it's what I love to do. So I am just honored that I get to do it every day.
I think that's wonderful and a much needed service in an industry that is constantly going through
Yeah.
change. And so I'm glad you're out there doing that. In addition to your change management, I know that both of us have a background in marketing and firm growth
Mhm.
as well.
Yes.
So I guess I would kind of like to tie the two things together a little bit.
Yes.
I'd like to talk a little bit about how a strong culture can fuel firm growth and why it is becoming, or I would imagine already, a competitive advantage.
So I've done a ton of work in the culture space. I worked for a firm that now is a top 8 firm, and I very much was plugged into the people side, the culture side. I began on the marketing side of the fence, and it evolved as we grew. And what we learned over the years is that when people are aligned to the mission, vision, values, which helps drive what the culture of the firm is,
Hmm.
that performance is greater. We can achieve peak performance when there is alignment between what the goals of the firm are and how people understand their job, what they're doing every day is affecting what those goals are. So I need to understand why is it that I am doing the work that I am doing? How has that impacted the forward momentum of the firm? Because we all, as humans, desire to be part of something larger than us. And when people feel that way, they give discretionary energy. And when we give discretionary energy, we grow.
That makes sense. And it's that whole idea of having a purpose.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
I would think tying that purpose, like an individual purpose, to
Hmm.
that of the firm as a whole and
Hmm.
feeling a part of that.
Yes.
I like that.
One of the things that really helped solidify this in my mind was one of the ways that we grew when I worked for a firm was through a number of acquisitions, some of them really large, some of them smaller, tuck-ins. And we arrived at this point in the mid 2000s where we had grown via M&A, and organic, but mainly M&A.
Hmm.
And everybody continued to kind of do what they were doing in their space. So, if it was this one office in whatever city it is, they kind of kept their own traditions. We had every office kind of doing different tax methodologies. And, you might have a partner here or a partner there who had their own methodology, which meant that only like a certain number of people could support that partner. And so what happened was we were spending all this energy and time and resources in a very inefficient system. And what we needed was a one firm mentality, one firm process, one firm functions. And so we began this mantra. Every firm kind of talks about being one firm. But when you show people what that means in real life, what does it mean to be one firm? How do we live out that purpose? And we began to align all of our methodology. We aligned our systems. We began to align our people, and we began to operate as one firm. And that's when we began to see our growth just, exponentially go off the charts. We could not have continued if we had not had that purpose as acting as one firm for the benefit of our people and of our clients.
And that had to be a communication challenge in a way because people are also just in general often resistant to change, right? And
Yeah. Yes.
we worked with a lot of accounting firm partners, and certainly some of them are like, no, this is how I've always done it. I kind of want to tie that into my next question is I have worked with firm leaders, I imagine you probably have too, that are resistant to change and have say things like, I had to suffer through X, I had to work 80-hour weeks during busy season. So why shouldn't, this generation do that? And I turned out okay. And to which I often will argue that I'm not 100% sure that you did turn out okay if you want others to suffer,
Yes, yes.
that's probably a whole different topic for a whole different day. But I do kind of would love to get your input on what shifts in mindset and management style firms need to start looking into and adopting to remain competitive and attractive to today's talent because today's talent can go anywhere they want to. So,
Sure.
how do you become that firm where people want to work and want to stay?
There is no one right way for a firm to be in terms of their purpose. I think it's so super important for you to be able to define what your culture is, what's important to you. I'm going to use the word purpose because you used it earlier. Like, what is your purpose? And stick to it. Are you a people first firm where when I say people first, I mean people over profit?
Hmm.
Okay, you're going to attract people who believe in people over profit. And it's not going to be as important to them, probably, to be, getting giant bonuses. The partners aren't going to be wanting that million plus take home.
Hmm.
But that you're going to attract like-minded people because you have identified that's your purpose. If your purpose, if you've decided that your culture is a growth first purpose, you're going to attract those types of people. So it's important for you to understand what your strategic goals are in order to be able to attract and retain the people who align with those goals. But you can't have it all
Hmm.
because then you're just not going to be able to sustain keeping the right people in the firm. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, we've been talking for, 10 minutes now or so. And what so much of this is going back to the firm truly identifying and understanding and communicating their mission, vision, values. Okay, any group of people are not going to think exactly alike. And
Right.
but there needs to be some sort of alignment and buy-in on these mission, vision, values. Otherwise, it's like, you're trying to go down the road in 14 different directions, right?
Yes, and I do think a lot of it does come down to communication and being able to effectively communicate it. So what I mean by that is, if you took two firms that had, and you looked at their values, I mean, chances are their values are going to be probably 9 out of 10 the same, right? Okay, we're humans. We want relationships. We want trust, you know. Um, but what does that mean in everyday life? What does relationships mean at your firm? Does that mean command and follow? Or does that mean everybody has a voice and your voice matters and we're more consensus driven? So being able to define that and even articulating it down to what does that look like in everyday activities? What does that mean in terms of how you communicate with your clients? What does that mean in how you interact with each other? Responsiveness. Everybody says, one of our client service guidelines is to be responsive. Well, what does that mean?
Hmm.
Does that mean we reach out to them once a year and give them their tax organizer? Or does that mean that we have a policy that we respond within 24 hours to every email? Does that mean that we always deliver 24 hours in advance of when we say we're going to deliver? What does responsiveness mean? And if you can't distill what those actions look like in everyday life, your team members are going to interpret it however their little minds want to,
Hmm.
and you can't have alignment.
Uh, Completely agree. And I would also say, like, you have to live it as well.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
you can't
Yes.
just be out there saying, all right, we respond to emails in 24 hours. Okay. But then the partners don't do that, or they don't set up a system where maybe an executive assistant can do that. However, that is
Yeah,
executed can be done differently by different
right.
people. But I've seen a lot of situations, and particularly since, in Move, we're looking at culture and opportunities for everybody that's there, regardless of, race, age,
Hmm.
gender, all of that. There are times when people say they believe something, but then and I think they want everybody else to deliver on that. But there are cases where I've seen that the partner group or the leadership group doesn't necessarily put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, or they think they believe it
Yeah,
because their
good
understanding
point.
of it is different. I mean, they aren't maybe disingenuine, but they don't realize it until that belief system is either put to the test or they are shown by example what that means in real life.
Now, that's a really good point.
I mean, I do think that like I use people first as a great example because there isn't a firm in the world that wouldn't say, "Oh yeah, we're people first." But what does that mean? Because it can mean so many different things.
Mm-hmm. We've seen firms that execute on that very well, and then those that don't necessarily,
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that kind of takes me to the next question I wanted to talk about, which is change can often put some of these beliefs or values to the test.
Yes.
Um, and right now, something is always changing in accounting firms out there, whether
Mhm.
it's a merger or PE infusion, introducing a new service or just
Yeah.
keeping pace, right? So,
Right.
what are some of the biggest communication missteps that you've
Hmm.
seen during these times of transition or just regular change?
Okay, I have two. And I feel like a broken record because I say these two all the time. You always start with the why. People have to understand why.
Mm.
And you don't just communicate it once, you communicate it over and over and over and over again. And every single communication should include a nod towards the why this change is happening. And I use the example of the pandemic. Um, During the pandemic, I worked for a very, very people first firm. And we started every single communication with the statement, our number one priority is the health, safety, and well-being of our people, our clients, and our communities. And for this reason, whatever it was that we were communicating that day, you know, you are not returning to the office, or if you return to the, I mean, whatever it was, we were communicating,
Right.
because I felt like that for about 365 days, I communicated something. And it was like one day I'd say one thing and the next day I'd say completely the opposite. But it was all in honoring the health, safety, and well-being of our people, our clients, and our communities. And so just being able to repeat, that was the why. That was always the why. So always being able to communicate that why is my first thing. And then the second is you need to communicate even when you have nothing to communicate.
Mm.
And that may sound odd in this world that we live in, full of white noise and brown noise and all the noise,
Yeah.
to communicate when you don't have anything. But that is because we as humans, in the absence of information, our minds go to the darkest place, not the lightest place. And so, what happens is if people, let's just say, the CEO, I don't know what would be, I'm trying to think of something that might be, whatever it is. If we say, okay, we're going to implement, a new tax methodology, and then we tell people that, but the implementation doesn't happen for 3 or 4 months. In that absence of all that, if you don't communicate along the way,
Mm.
even if you're just communicating milestones or saying, this continues to be a work in progress, our launch date remains the same, nothing has changed. People are going to start to go to a dark place, and they're going to say, you know what? We haven't heard anything about that new tax methodology. You know what? I bet AI is coming in. I bet they're getting AI and we're going to lose our jobs. I mean, that is exactly where our minds go
Sure.
if we are not continuously given information and assuring people that there is no additional information. The other thing on that front, it's always helpful to say the next communication, we plan to communicate again in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever the next is. And in that 4 weeks, if there's still nothing new, you reiterate what was in the first communication and you say, nothing new to communicate. Because guess what? The chance that somebody remembers what was in that first communication is probably slim, or that they even saw it in their inbox because we have so much information coming in and out. So those are the two things. One, always start with the why and communicate the why over and over. And the second thing is communicate even when there's nothing to communicate.
That's a really good point, and not necessarily one I would have thought of. The why, certainly, but the communicate even when there's nothing to communicate, you're right. I mean, I've caught myself doing that, and if we don't hear something, then we're like, oh, something must be wrong,
Oh, my mother is the worst at that. She's a great example. I haven't heard from you. Are you sick? No, Mom, I'm busy.
Yeah.
Right?
I am just fine. Or for some reason, I was going to like relationships, right? Back many
Sure.
years ago when I was dating, if you didn't hear from somebody you'd gone on a date with, well, you assume the word, oh, he hated me, or,
Right.
oh, it was terrible. I'll never hear from this person again. When in reality, we all do that. We
Right.
forget to respond or don't respond as quickly as somebody
Or
else
we're
is
busy.
able. Yeah, we're busy. But you're right. You do tend, it is probably everybody's human nature. I've fallen into that trap for sure. Of
Mhm.
like, say, filling in gaps with
Yes.
things that you have no real basis to do so with, but
Right.
you still do.
And I had a call yesterday with a brilliant marketer, and she was telling me they were going through some change, and I thought she did something that was really interesting along these lines. She used AI to help her look through the message boards that were out there, Reddit and whatnot, to see what were the negative things that people were saying about this change that they were going, not specific to her firm, but other firms who had
Mm.
been through this in the past. And what was the language they used to describe it? And she took that exact language and those exact negative sentiments, and she addressed all of them in her FAQs. So she went to the negative place that everybody's mind is going to go, and she flipped it to show how this was going to be a positive. And I thought that was a really interesting way to communicate, to alleviate the mind from going. You already have gone there for people in the negativity and mitigated the risk of what they were thinking by sharing, the truth about what was this change was going to mean to them.
That's fascinating.
A great way to use AI.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. I want to move on to a little bit of a different topic and talk a little bit about DEI, which is a space where I live in. And, as firms are quietly retreating from some of their DEI efforts, not all of them, but quite a few,
Hmm.
they risk losing the trust of younger employees who expect a visible commitment to inclusion and want to feel a sense of belonging. There's study after study that says that. And one I recently saw that was like more than half of Gen Z would quit a job or not accept a job if the leadership did not have some sort of diversity. So
Hmm.
this is important to them. How can firm leaders navigate this current climate of pulling back from DEI without alienating some stakeholders or abandoning the values that matter most to their future leaders? I know that's a lot.
It is a lot. And, a lot of it just depends on the leader. It depends on the firm. Um, but one of the things that I've recommended to firms that I'm working with currently is that to really, you cannot go wrong if you place emphasis on your values and you focus on your values rather than whatever is I hate to say it, but the climate of the day. I don't know of anywhere from a accounting perspective that would find it beneficial to have an environment that did not create a sense of belonging because you can't have teams working together if people don't feel that they belong. So, I think a lot of firms really are focusing on that sense of belonging rather than, and they are abandoning some of their DEI initiatives. Like, I know Pride Month happened at a really tricky time, and I was working with a firm that, thought last year they were going to really be able to come forward with their Pride Month, and instead they didn't even acknowledge it, which did cause issue in the firm. Um, and I think that as a leader, they have to weigh the pros and cons of what is at stake. Is it worth it to not address it? Is it going against, again, going back to that shared purpose? If we have a shared purpose, are we going against our shared purpose by not acknowledging it? If that isn't the case and you don't have that shared purpose, then you're not really going to lose so much. And you may lose employees, but that may be something that again, it isn't as important to you, and you only were going along because it was the thing of the day at some point. And I hate to say that because that's not really what I personally believe. But that could be the case for a firm. But I have advised all of my firms to really focus on their values because you cannot go wrong if you focus on your values and what it means to live your values. And that's going to be unique for each firm. The words might be the same, but the way they're lived out is probably going to be unique.
Hmm. And while you made a good point there with the idea that you may lose some people, but in reality, um, to go to the example of Pride Month, if you have gay employees there who that's not necessarily a group that you feel um, the need to make them feel like they belong, then they probably aren't your next generation of leaders. And
Exactly.
it's a
I mean,
good,
I hate to say that, it pains me,
mhm,
but that employee is going to be better off somewhere else.
yep,
Quite frankly, like I don't want to work somewhere that's like has this fake sense of belonging. I want to work somewhere that I belong. Like, it'd be like me working for an all male firm that really did not believe that women had a place in the in the workplace. I mean, if I knew that's not, they weren't genuine in their stance and they really didn't think I belonged, then I don't want to be there either. And I'm
right.
glad to know that that's how they feel. So I don't know. I just, that's a tricky one. I mean, it's really tricky, especially you started out by talking about the war on talent because it is true. There is a war on talent. But at the same time, you said you got to think about what does the future of the firm look like and what do you desire the leadership to look like? And, that goes back to again to your values and your shared purpose.
Hmm. And kind of one of the good things that came out of COVID, is remote work. And
Hmm.
that gives people looking for a firm to work for that fits their values,
Hmm.
um, a lot more opportunity. I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
I know I had multiple conversations with firms before 2020 that were like, there is no way we could have remote work.
Hmm.
And that would absolutely not work for us. And then come March 2020, we all got to figure it out one way or the other, whether we like it or not.
Right.
And somehow everybody did. And what that now does, and firms, some of them have return to office kind of policies. I work with two firms right now that have gone the opposite of that and gone
Mm.
remote.
Hmm.
And but it gives good employees an opportunity, a much larger uh, base of potential employers.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And I do like that a lot. And I'm with you. If this is the leadership here is kind of saying what they think they need to say, but don't really believe it.
Mm.
I do want to know that up front.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow,
Hmm.
and it's hard for me to talk about because I want everybody to sing Kumbaya and create a sense of belonging for everyone. But
Right.
in reality, that's not the way the world is today.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I've heard you say before, and you may have actually said it today, is great communication can win hearts and minds. And
Hmm.
that's kind of what we've been talking about somewhat. But
Hmm.
what are some practical ways for firm leaders to build connection and trust through communication? I know we've talked about communicating the why, communicating
Hmm.
even when you don't have something to say, but how can they build that trust, especially when they're afraid of saying the wrong thing,
Mm.
which connects to DEI and a lot of things like that. There's a lot of
Yeah,
around
there
that.
is. One of the things that I love to do is create personas. They are something that the external marketers have used forever and ever and ever. But also I believe in using them internally. If you have a 10-person firm or a 10,000-person firm, you've got personas. So you've got different constituents that you're communicating with. And by creating personas, you're able to really understand what's important to them.
Mm.
Because when you communicate, I mean, you're talking about a probably 30 to 40-year age span in most firms. So you have from probably 22 to 65. I'm not good at math. That's why I'm in
That's
the
more
words.
than 40.
That's more than 40 years. But what is important to the partner who's about to retire is very different than what's important to someone who's just starting their career.
Hmm.
And so, as you're trying to gain the confidence of your audience, it's important to be able to speak to what is important to them. What are their priorities? And And using personas really allows you to take that target audience and look at your message and say, have I answered this, or have I communicated in a way that's going to resonate? And often that means doing more than one communication.
Mm.
You know, it may be a waterfall where, you know, the firm leadership gets the first instance that it says this, the partner group might get something a little bit different. Your manager, senior managers might get something, and then your staff might get something a little bit different. It does create more work. It
Hmm.
also could be in the same communication, but you're able to address, you know, each of the different audience segments throughout the same message. But it's just really important to think about what's going through the mind of your audience when you communicate. There's a quote that I think it was George Bernard Shaw. Um, the problem with communication is that we think that we communicated. That's not exactly how it is. But the bottom line is what we think we have communicated is not what the actual person heard. And so, you know, the same thing goes when for leaders, when they're communicating, they have to get into the mind of their audience in order to ensure that their message resonates.
Yes. And I would add to that, long before I got into the accounting space, I actually worked for an internal communications firm at one point. And I think to go back to the quote that you were talking about, what you think you've communicated is not always what you've communicated. So surveying your people or
Yeah.
testing messaging out with a small group of people
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or something like that to like make sure it that you're saying what you want to say and it's being received in the way
Yes.
you want to receive it. Now, I'm not saying lie to people by any means, but there's ways to
No,
say things that are going to be received better than others. And you're right that in some cases depends on your age or where you
your
are, structure,
experience.
your
Mm-hmm.
experience, even I mean, you can't get this granular, but even your experience with personal experience with
Right.
communications, or, you know, if you worked with a firm that was acquired by another firm and you're about to be acquired again, you know, you bring your baggage
Mm-hmm.
to that
Yeah.
experience, which indeed kind of does influence how you're going to receive messages. So I think that's a really good advice.
I brought up AI a minute ago. I'll bring it up again. God, what an advantage we have now to be able to run messaging through AI. You know, share with AI. These are my target audiences. These are the personas. You know, have I addressed what, you know, have I addressed each of these audiences in this message? Is there anything in here that could be perceived negatively? How can I adjust my message? You know, I think all of that's really, really important. And I also think some firm leaders do really well communicating live, either in person or on video, and some don't.
Yeah.
And I think leaders need to understand what are their communication strengths. And there's nothing worse than somebody who is a terrible person on camera or live in front of an audience using that as their primary communications channel. Like,
Mhm.
you're going to be unbelievable. People are not going to trust you because you're not being your authentic self up there. And so I think it's important for you to figure out what your right medium is and use that as your primary communication channel, because all of the channels, you know, can be used in so many different ways.
I agree. And I would add to that, like, there are situations where speaking in front of a group or video is the proper channel, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But media training, there is no
Mhm.
shame in going out there and getting some media training.
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember I went through it a long time, you know, we're talking about 25 years ago, and it was awkward and it felt weird and all of those things. But I learned stuff in that training that I still use whenever I do presentations or,
Absolutely.
you
I
know,
do too. I mean, I always, and I've always been fairly good in on camera on the stage, but there are certain things that I took with me and do use all the time. I mean, the same with writing. If you're a horrible writer and you're CEO, then like maybe written messaging, you either get somebody to write it for you, or maybe you rely on a different communications channel.
mhm. And as somebody in that role, be open to feedback and, don't take it personally. Like when
Yes.
somebody's like, okay, you suck at this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, how can I get better? And you may never be, the up doing TED Talks on a regular basis or something,
Sure.
but at least you can feel more confident and feel like you're communicating in a way where you're going to be heard
Yeah.
and understood, I guess.
Exactly.
Well, for my last question, and we've talked about a lot of things here, but for firm leaders who really do want to build a culture of transparency and become an employer of choice and get that messaging out there, what is the most important piece of advice you would offer?
Oh man, this is a hard one, Bonnie. I think having a strategy, I know that sounds so cliche, but a lot of people think that if they can talk, if they can type, they've got a strategy. They'll just communicate when they need to. And I think really understanding your organization or your firm and creating a strategy that addresses what your firm's vision is, what your firm's strategy is. You mentioned surveying earlier, understanding, what are the needs of the audience members. Maybe they only really need to be communicated with once a quarter because their line partners are communicating all the time. Maybe the line partners don't communicate at all, and you need to do, an update once a month. Whatever it is, it's having that strategy that informs that and informing the firm. This is my strategy. You can expect to hear from me on, once a quarter, once a month, whatever it is. You will hear from me via email. If we, on once a month with my blog, you will hear from me once a quarter with a firm-wide update. If we have breaking news, such as a merger acquisition, something bringing in a new partner, it all depends on the size of the firm. But anyway, you can expect to hear from me via a short video. Whatever it is, helping the firm understand this is how I can expect to hear from my leader. I think that's really important for people to know. And using that in onboarding. So when you onboard a new employee, that how the communications for the firm is shared
Mhm.
in that onboarding process. Here's where you go to get information. Here's how you will receive information, et cetera, et cetera.
I think that's great. And I would add to that because I have worked with firms who do not have stated mission, vision, values.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh,
And
sorry. I thought that was table stakes.
it should be. It absolutely should be. But there have been times when I get a blank stare back when I say, what is your mission and vision and
Yeah,
values? So, if that's something that you haven't created or gone through the process on, then I think that's definitely something you should do right away. Because
absolutely.
otherwise, how can you communicate that to everybody in the firm? And how can you make sure that there is baseline expectations of how you're going to act, how you're going to treat clients?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'll add to that, Bonnie. Some firms do have mission, vision, values, but they were created 25 years ago. And
Right.
while the mission hasn't changed or the values, the language has evolved over the past 25 years.
Mhm.
And so it's not going to resonate with your younger generation that you're trying to recruit and retain. So there's several firms I've worked with in the past year who brought me on just to help them bring the language up to 2025. And so, we did not change. Their mission didn't change, but the way we articulate it changes. So I think also I'll add to that it's really important that mission, vision, values is written in a way that is memorable and that can be understood by the audience.
Yeah. And that it just becomes something that you look at whether it's every couple of years or whatever it is. I mean, it's certainly not something that's going to change on a routine basis,
Right.
regular basis, but it's smart to take a look at it, and hopefully it's something that you're living and seeing all the time. So,
Yes.
there may be something in there that you're like, we might need to expand this or further clarify this or
Right.
something. So,
One, I know we're at the end of time, but a great, people are probably wondering, what does that even mean? A great example is the firm I worked for. Our mission was we build valuable careers with our people and help our clients achieve their goals. And we brought on a new chief people officer, and she changed one word because our mission statement was we build valuable careers for our people. And she came on and she said, we're not building careers for them, we're building careers with them.
yeah.
So that one word was a subtle change that really that showed you how important relationships were at that firm. I mean, it was all about we are partners. We have relationships with each other. We are growing together, rather than the top down kind of a more that little difference really shows you the difference in the way people first looks at the firm.
Yeah. That's great. Um, and you're right, that one word change there, because when you repeated it the second time, I'm like, oh, four. And then of course that was the word. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's fascinating.
Hmm.
Well, thank you. I do want to close with just a couple of fun questions.
Oh, good.
I,
Okay.
I always joke that they entertain me, and I have heard from others that they enjoy hearing this. So, when you were 5 years old or a kid, young child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a veterinarian. I love animals and I had horses and I thought I was going to be a veterinarian. And guess what? I don't like blood. I couldn't be a veterinarian.
Yep. I kind of had sights on a similar thing and also do not like blood. So, and then all the math and science that was involved.
Oh, yeah. Also, there's math. We've learned through this short time together that I'm not good at math.
Well, same. Um, well, I know you just got back from a very big trip, but if you were given the chance to travel anywhere for free, you don't have to worry about taking time off or any of those things that keep us from just traveling wherever we want to, when we want
Hmm.
to. Where would you go
Hmm.
and why?
I think that I would probably go to New Zealand, because I travel a lot. Bonnie knows this. I travel a lot. But New Zealand is so far that you really need a good amount of time. It's not somewhere that you go for a week. So I choose New Zealand because you said time is not an issue. So I would go and spend a number of months in New Zealand, and learn what life is like in New Zealand.
That's on my bucket list too.
Yeah.
I love that. And finally, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Mm. Well, I have an 11-year-old. So my superpower would be to help her understand that I am not dumb. That mom is kind of smart and it's really not worth disagreeing with me.
Okay, that's a first, but
Yeah, yeah.
that would be valuable, I would think,
I did just spend 24 hours a day for 6 weeks straight with her. So I am, that is top of mind for me
I
because I was
understand.
not very smart many, many days this summer.
I hear you, and I think that's a pretty smart superpower. There you go. I like it.
But if I had like a real superpower, it might be to bring shared understanding to the world we live in.
I like that one too.
That one's probably a little bit better, a little more lofty and less selfish.
Yeah, but actually together they would accomplish the same thing, right?
Exactly. They might, yes, they would. Great point.
I like it. It's just a different way to communicate that.
It
There
is
we go.
indeed.
Full circle. I love it when that.
Okay, love it.
Well, thank you so much. It's always great to see you, Alice Gray, and
You
appreciate
too.
you taking the time. And look forward to hopefully seeing you in person somewhere soon.
I know. Thanks, Bonnie. I appreciate being here.
Thank you for listening to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams, the Center for Accounting Transformation and CPA Trendlines. If you'd like to learn more, visit our website at accountingmoveproject.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends and colleagues too. I'm your host, Bonnie Buol Ruszczyk, and until next time, keep moving forward.